Hello and welcome to the fantastic Cudmore Fisheries here in Staffordshire. You join me here on the Adelaide Lake, which is home of course to the Fish O Mania Grand Final, where one lucky angler every summer walks away with a cheque for £30,000. Anyway, back to the lakes themselves. There's over 40 lakes on site, but there's only I think 15 that you can actually fish. Cudmore itself holds a special place in my heart. I've been coming here for over 20 years, back when I had strawberry blonde hair, not a care in the world, used to fish every day. Not much has changed then really, has it? Yes! But no, back to the lakes themselves. We've got sort of 3 snake lakes on site, Suez, Panama and Moors. Suez and Moors are pretty much like for like, you know, lots of little F1s, carp, eyed, chub, barbel, things like that. So baits like maggots and pellets work really well on there. The other snake lake is Panama. There tends to be a few bigger carp in there. There's lots of eyed and silverfish as well, but baits like meat, corn and pellets all work on there. And then maggots work in the deeper water for the silverfish. We'll go and see all them later actually. Then you've got sort of special lakes. We've got different special lakes. We've just opened up a big new lake this year, which has got, I think it's got 20 pegs on it. It's quite a big lake. It's only got 200 fish in it, so they're going to grow really big. They're sort of 8 to 16 pound at the moment, brand new and very angry. Then we've got another special lake called Avoca, which is my favourite fishery on this complex. It's full of great big roach, but it's also like a runs water. There's lots of carp in it. There's catfish to sort of like 80 odd pound, which we think they're 80 odd pound. No one's ever caught them because you always seem to get behind the island and snap all the anglers. But there's some big fish in there. And as I say, we've got something a little bit different. We've actually got a predator lake on site as well, which has got quite a few pike in, obviously. It's got some great big perch in. It's got catfish in to over 60 pound. And it's also got some carp in as well. So, you know, this fishery really does have something for everyone. You see Adelaide Lake behind me. I'm going to go through exactly how I target the fish on here. Obviously it's coming colder now, so it's a little bit different to what I'll be doing in summer. Baits change a bit, but the actual methods that I'll be fishing won't change at all. It's just going to be sort of like different line diameters, obviously, when it's warmer than when it's colder. So if you join me back at my peg, I'll show you exactly how we're set up for these lovely fishes. Here we are then, the Adelaide Lake, the most famous lake in fishing, with the Fish O Mania final being on here. I'm going to talk you through exactly how I go about tackling these kind of waters. Now, most people when they come to these kind of lakes, you know, big open water, they get a bit scared and they don't know where to start. Basically, if ever you've got an island, always exploit that first. Whether it's like a snake lake or a big open water like this, always start on the island. Because what happens, a commotion of everyone walking around the lake, the fish naturally push off to cover. So I'd start off over there on a method feeder, pellet feeder, you know, bomb, cage feeder, it doesn't really matter. But what I've found is if there's still a bit of colour in the water, it is going to be a bit colder now, but if there's still a bit of cold in the water, then, colour in the water, then the fish will take the method quite happily. As soon as that colour starts to go, forget about the method, go over to things like a cage feeder with a long tail on, or a pellet cone or something like that. So that's what I'm starting off on. The other line I'm feeding is a waggler for sort of 18 to 20 metres away from my pole line. Now with that waggler line, I'm going to be loose feeding casters on that, and I'm looking to catch fish on the drop, but I've also got it set for fishing on the bottom. It's a very, very slow falling way of fishing, you know, getting that bait down to the fish. You're looking to catch fish like eyed, chub, but then obviously if it settles and it's on the bottom, then you're going to catch the fish like the tench and the carp that are also prolific in this lake. Now my last plan of attack is going to be the pole line. Now what I tend to do with the pole line then here, because it tends to come good later on in the session, I'll feed it up for a good hour and a half before you even try it. So whilst I'm on the method, we have funny rules here at Cudmore. You can actually feed your pole line with a pole pot whilst you've got your feeder in. You know, it's on other fisheries you go to, you're not allowed to do that. You've got to bring your, you know, your rod out of the water and then go and feed your swim. But on here, you can have your tip in, you can have your feeder in, and you can go and feed your pole lines as well. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant way of doing it, actually. So that's that pole line. Let's go back to the method, and I'll talk you exactly through how I've set it up. So basically, we've got 8-pound Maxima reel line on. Now, all we've got on this main line is we've just got a sliding rubber bead there. That's sort of a semi-fixed feeder. It's our Map Quick interchangeable feeders. It's only a 20-gram one. What I found on these kind of waters, when it goes a bit colder, the fish will spook if you're using too heavy a feeder. So it's only a tiny, tiny little feeder. Onto that, I've just got a sort of 4 or 5 inch hook length. It's 0.20 diameter, and I've got a Guru QM1 size 14 hook. I'm just going to put a couple of dead red maggots on that. And what I'll do with this feeder, I'll put quite a hard layer on first, then I'll put the maggots in, and then I'll put a softer layer on top with the ground bait. My ground bait mix, incidentally, I'll always do half and half micros and ground bait. Then I think the fish have got the best of both worlds, and you've got the ground bait there to attract the fish instantly, but once you've hooked a fish, you've got the micro pellets left there to keep fishing your peg. It's a mix that I've got complete confidence in. It's something that I've always done over the years. Incidentally, it's a 10-foot bomb rod as well. A lot of anglers seem to struggle when they come to sort of these kind of chucks. These are your typical kind of chucks that you'll have on these kind of waters. It's only sort of 30, 35 yards. They'll instantly get like a 12-foot rod out. It's too cumbersome, and what happens when you've got a fish on, it's coming up too far out, you know, with your landing net. So shorter rods are miles better. The fish are there, they're nice and comfy, you can net them nice and quick. So coming over to the waggler rod, we've got a 13-foot light waggler rod. It's 4-pound mainline, but incidentally it's only 0.18 diameter. Now that's very important when you're waggler fishing, when you're using very light floats, which I'll show you in a second. If you use too thicker mainline, what happens is when you go to cast that waggler out, there's too much friction through your rod rings, so you must use a light diameter line. Now, I'll just show you that float. It's a 1.5 grand Drennan loaded insert waggler. So in old money, it's probably only 4 or 5 number 4s. That's all it takes. You can see how I've set it up there. Again, I've got 2 rubber float stops. I've got 3 number 9s above my float, and I've got 3 number 9s below it just to lock it in place. A very important tip this, I'll always use loaded floats. I'll never ever use unloaded floats. The reason being is because if you use an unloaded floats, you've got to put that big, horrible, non-toxic lead on your line, and it's no good. It just weakens your line. So you can legally use lead into a size 8. So that's what I've got. I've got number 9s there, just in place for it. It doesn't damage the line at all. I've set that up for about 5 foot, 5.5 foot, which is on the bottom. Coming down the line, we've got a single number 10, and then sort of 8 to 10 inches, another number 10, 8 to 10 inches, another number 10, and I've got a nice long 10-inch hook length. Basically, when you're waggler fishing, it's important when you're casting it in to make sure you're feathering, what's called feathering the float, so that basically your float's landing on the water and then your bait's going past your float, so it's all landing in a nice straight line. So that basically that's going to fall nice and slow like that, and that's where you get a lot of bites on the drop on a waggler. It's a fantastic way of catching fish just while you're resting your other lines. Again, nice light waggler rods. You don't want anything too powerful. I know there's a big craze for sort of like these power carp waggler rods at the moment, and trust me, you don't want them on fish like hide and chub and things like that, because all that you'd be doing, you'd just be bumping them off all the time. So you want a nice soft light waggler rod. It's a fantastic way of fishing, and you can cover so much water. Basically, when you catapult that bait in, it spreads over sort of 4 or 5 metre square, so you don't have to be too accurate on it. Just, you know, fish around it. And what happens when it does come a bit colder, the fish will start to get a bit spooky. So by fishing around the swim where you're actually feeding them casters, it's a much better way of catching lots of certainly small fish. Now coming over to the pole rig, it's a double 4s elastic. Now there's lots of carp in here, sort of up to and over 6-7 pound, and you might think, well, double 4s elastic, that's miles too light. But the reason I've got that on is because the way I'm fishing to target everything swimming. So I'm using maggots and I'm feeding micro pellets. Now, I'm catching fish like hide and little tench and barbel. If you're using too heavy elastic and gearing yourself up for carp, what's going to happen is you're going to bump too many fish. There's a big head of skimmers in here as well, and you know, skimmers are notorious. If you're fishing too heavy for them, you're just going to bump them. Coming to talk you through the rig itself, it's a 0.12 diameter main line, so roughly 3.5 pounds in old money. You notice I've got quite a bit of distance between my pole tip and float. I've got 2 number 8s as back shot, roughly 4 or 5 inches above the float. It's a 0.3 of a gram float. Again, it's sort of like 5.5 foot deep where I'm fishing. Coming down the rig, we've got a bulk of number 9s, and I've just got a couple of number 12s just to dink that float right down. I've got some bristle grease on as well, so I can have that float sat exactly where I want it. Again, coming down the rig, I've got 3 number 11s on as droppers. If it was a little bit windier today, or I had undertow, I'd gone to number 9s or number 10s, but 11s are perfect when you're after sort of silverfish or everything swimming basically. You're getting your hook bait to fall very, very slow, almost as slow as the loose feed that you're putting in. The hook link itself, it's a 6-inch hook length, and I've got an 18s 911 F1 hook on, and I've just been alternating between sort of a single red maggot or double red maggot. Now what's happened the last sort of half an hour, the carp have really come on the feed, so I've been giving them a little bit more. I'll just show you the pot I've been feeding through. So it's only a tiny pot really. To start with, I was sort of half filling it with micros and maggots, but now I'm filling it right up to the top. There's quite a few carp in the peg, as I say, so I'm filling it right up to the top. Fishing wise today, I've started off on the method. I've had 40 minutes on that, not a bite. There's been fish over there, but I've not had a bite on it. So then I've come back to the waggler, and I've been into fish straight away. Sort of little eyed. I've had a carp about 3 or 4 pounds on it. Then that's gone a bit iffy, so I've carried on feeding that. I've gone onto the pole line. I've waited sort of 10-15 minutes for a bite. And then I've had a little eyed, and then I've had a barbel, then I've had a tench, and then it's just been a carp a chuck since then. It's brilliant fishing at the moment. All I'm doing is alternating between the pole and the waggler. I've had one more quick chuck back on the tip. Well, it went a bit quiet on the pole, but again, nothing over there. So that's me done for the tip. I'm just going to concentrate on the waggler and the pole, and I'm going to catch some more fishes. Yes! Okay, so here we are at the brand new special lake that was only opened earlier this year. It's called the Adelaide Lake. It's got loads of big carp in, sort of ranging from 8 to 16 pound. But the thing about these carp is they're brand new fish. They're only sort of 3 years old. They've been fed on really high protein bait. So if you get a run on these kind of fish, you know, they're just going to take you all over the place. There's no sort of islands as such. What there is there's a central bar running from where I'm standing here right to the far bank. It's probably about 8 metres wide. It's 3 to 4 foot on top of the bar, and then it slopes down nice and gradual to 6 foot either side of it. I can imagine it's going to be really popular when it opens up properly, sort of later on next year. The carp you're going for, the sort of mirrors and commons. There's plans to put sort of catfish in and pike as well, so it's going to be a real mixture. You know, there's going to have your obviously your dead baits. You can have your lure fishing, your proper carp tactics as well. It's really going to be one for the future, this lake, so make sure you come and give it a go. Out of all the fantastic lakes here Cudmore has to offer, this is my absolute favourite. We're at the Avoca pool now. It's a specimen water. You know, there's lots of great big carp in to just short of 30 pound. There's some massive catfish in to sort of like 80 pound. They tend to see everyone off who tries to fish for them. But I just love the roach fishing on here. It's to die for, it's amazing. Where I'm stood now, I'm at the shallow end. It's sort of 3 to 4 foot out towards the island, and then it just gradually goes out to the deeper pegs where you've got Milo behind you. You've got sort of 7 or 8 foot depth up there. And that's where I get on the pole or the waggler or the slider, just loose feeding casters, maggot on the hook, and you just catch fish all day long. It's amazing. But likewise, it's a bit of a runs water as well, because there's so many carp to target on here. You know, things like PVA bags, you know, obviously spodding a lot of bait in, little tiny boilies over them. You'll catch on zig rigs, you'll catch on method to the island. Anything you try works for these carp on here. They're starving, you know, they really want that bait putting in at them. It's got a lot to offer the angler. There's some great big perch in. As I said, the catfish, there's some little baby kittens in. You could, you know, if you've not really caught a catfish before, you could quite easily come down here and just fish pole sort of short, you know, 5 or 6 metres, chop a little bit of meat up, and I guarantee you'll catch a catfish when it's a little bit warmer. Gone a little bit cold now, but in the warmer months, you guarantee catfish. There's that many fish in. You seriously got to give this lake a try. Well, I said that Cudmore had something to offer every angler, and how about this for a concept, a predator lake? It's got roughly sort of 250 to 300 pike in here. It's got some great big perch in fact we put 2 in for just over £11 a few years ago. I don't think anyone's ever caught them, so they're still in here. It's got some great big carp in to sort of like mid-20s, and it's got some huge catfish in. I've had them personally out up to £46. It's an awesome, awesome water. Best baits are sort of lures, spinners work really well, dead baits, live baits work particularly well. But obviously, you know, for the carp, zig rigs work well in the summer. There's also a head of a, you know, silverfish in to keep the pike happy, and you can catch them all day long if you wanted to on pole or waggler work, just loose feeding maggots. It is a bit special, this water, and it's you know, it's a fantastic idea. Why more commercials don't do the same, I don't know. You know, it's come on really well. It's probably one of our, you know, best sort of special lakes that we've got on site here. So Tower Lake, come and give it a try. We're at one of the typical pleasure lakes now, Pool 1, and we're actually on my favourite peg on this lake, peg 16. It's won me a lot of money over the years, I've done really well off it. Typical species in here, everything basically. You know, you've got your carp, your F1s, your skimmers, your tench, your barbel, your chub. Baits work really well, sort of like maggots, pellets, everything's going to work on here. The best way of starting off is to cast a little method or a little cage feeder into the far bank, sort of like 2 metres off the reeds, then come back to your pole lines at sort of 13 metres and 6 metres, and just change between the lines all the time. It doesn't really matter where you sit, but if it's a warm wind blowing, always get down that end of the lake. Where it's a little bit colder like it is today, try and get out of the wind. But certainly there's something for everyone on these kind of waters. There's another 3 of these kind of lakes. Pool 1's probably the best known one of the lot. But you know, as I say, plenty to go for, so make sure you come and give it a try. This is one of 3 of our snake lakes that we've got to offer here at Cudmore. This is the Suez Canal. There's 40 pegs on here. We've got moors just down the bottom. There's 19 pegs on there. And then we've got Panama just below that. There's 26 pegs on there. Moors and Suez fish very much identical. They've been stocked the same, and Panama's got slightly bigger fish in it. We'll talk through Suez first. It's got fish like little F1s, little carp, skimmers, chub, barbel, tench, loads of fish to go for. So baits like maggots and pellets work well all year round. Now it's exactly the same down on moors as I said. It's a little bit deeper on there. You've got sort of 6.5, 7 foot down the track. It's probably about 5.5 foot on Suez. They're both sort of 13, 14 metres wide, no more than that. They scream out for pole fishing. And then a little bit further down we've got Panama, which has got a bigger fish in. It's got carp to sort of, I'd say low doubles in there. I've been broke off by a few of them, so I know how big they are. So baits like sort of pellets, corn and meat tend to be favourable on there. There is a lot of hiding as well. You know, they've come on really well this last year. They started off sort of tiny, but now even in the year, they've had a year's growth, a lot of bait going at them. they're getting sort of 10 ounce, 12 ounce, and they're real good weight builders. So you catch them down the middle on maggots, and then for the bigger carp across, meat and corn, it's well worth a try. Probably the most famous of the canals is Suey's, the one I'm on at the moment. Best pegs are anywhere from sort of all over it really. They all fish really well, so definitely worth a try when you're coming here. Right then, what a 90 minutes I've just had on the Adelaide Lake, and it just goes to prove why the Fish O Mania finals here. It's an absolutely stunning venue. I've caught a few eyed on the waggler, but when these big carp have rocked up on the pole line, oh, it's just been amazing. You know, I've had sort of commons and mirrors to about £5 there. I've got a good 40–45 pounds of fish. You know what I'm going to do with these now? I'm going to upload this catch report to Fishery.co.uk, and I suggest you do the same too. Tight lines from me, and it's tight lines from these bad boys.